Hello friends, this is again continuation of the same thing, the impact of GST on property prices. In the first video we have seen situation 1, the scenario 1, that in the first scenario the builder is getting the construction activity done through a contractor, and there are two stages. The stage 1 where the value addition is at the level of the contractor, and stage 2 the value addition is at the level of the builder. So there are two stages of value addition, and hence the price obviously goes up. In this video we are talking about scenario 2, where the construction activity is done by the builder himself without getting it contracted through a contractor. So this is the stage, this is the second scenario. So in the second scenario, let's assume the same components of the total cost. We have three main components: land 25, goods 50, labor 25, comes to 100. Now here in the second scenario, the builder will have to add GST. When the construction activity is done by the builder himself without getting it outsourced to a contractor, then the GST rate specified is 12% and not 18%. So here 12% on these three components plus profit. See, please note that in the second scenario, that is when the activity is done by the builder himself, the builder will have to add GST even on the land component. So on all these four components, land, goods, labor and profit element of the builder, GST at 12% on these four components comes to 12.60. So the total gross value of the bill comes to, the total cost comes to 112.60. Now the point here is, should the end consumer or the end buyer pay to the builder this price 112.60? No. The point here is that the end consumer, the buyer, should ask the benefit of input tax credit available to the builder, which was passed on which was passed on by we are talking about the second scenario. So the end consumer should ask the input tax credit that is available with the builder in the whole process of construction. So let us go into the input tax credit. On land, since there is no GST on land, so the question of input tax credit does not arise. On goods, as we have calculated in the first, as we have seen in the first video, on the goods there are two components. On the goods, the thumb rule is 50% of the goods is cement and 50% of the goods is steel. So on 50% of this component, GST at the rate of 28%, because 28% GST is specified for cements, comes to 7, and on steel it comes to 4.5, and on the labor component at 28% comes to 7. So the total input tax credit that is available with the builder is 18.50. Now but the total GST, the output GST on the total billing is 12.60. So the builder cannot pass on more than 12.60 as input tax credit to the ultimate buyer. So the ultimate buyer should ask for this input tax credit benefit. Now when this input tax credit benefit is passed on to the consumer or to the ultimate buyer, the landing price to the ultimate consumer should come to 100. Now compare these three situations. That is when the construction activity was done by the contractor, the price, the 100 price came to 100.40. So when we get it contracted, when the builder gets it contracted or gets the construction activity done through a contractor, the price is 100.40. And on the second stage of value addition, the price from 100.40 goes to 105.42. Assumptions based on all these assumptions. These assumptions may differ situation to situation. So price has gone from 100 to 105. Now let us compare this with a situation when the builder does the whole construction activity. Now in that scenario, the price is 100. Obviously, in the first scenario, there were two stages of value addition. So obviously the price will be high. In the second scenario, there is only one stage of value addition because the activity of construction is done by the builder himself. So the price is less. Now let us compare these three situations. Let us compare these three situations with what is actually happening presently in the current tax regime. See, what is happening presently is that there is no GST. So in pre-GST scenario, in the same activity, there is service tax at the rate of 4.5% and there is VAT at the rate of 1%. Since these lower rates of taxes are available to the builder because there is no input tax credit available. So almost all buyers, 100% of the buyers are carrying out the activity uh, with this method. That is, they are charging 4.5% service tax and they are charging 1% VAT on the total cost of the project. So let us keep our elements as they are. 25 is our land component, 50 is our goods component, and 25 is our labor component. That comes to 100. And let us assume that the builder adds only 5% profit. We can think of this as anything: 5, 10, 20, 100. Let's say the builder adds only 5% of profit. Now, in the current scenario, that is pre-GST, uh, there is 4.5% service tax on all these elements. So when service tax is added to all these elements, it comes to 4.73, and there is VAT of 1% on all the components, uh, including profit. So the total cost comes to 110.82. Now there is no input tax credit in this method. Almost all the buyers are following this method. They are not taking benefit of input tax credit and they are applying this lower rate of service tax and VAT. So the price to the buyer in the current situation comes to 110.82, keeping all the elements, all the assumptions same in order to compare apple to apple on an apple to apple basis. So when we compare this 110.82 with 100, the what is emerging is that post GST, the prices should fall by at least 5.5%. Minimum, the least price that should fall is 5.5%, presuming there is very minimal profit added by the builders. Now, if we take different scenarios of profit, this is at 5%. When we take 5%, the price goes to 110.82, and when it is compared with post GST scenario, it is more by 10.82%. So my understanding is the prices of the properties will definitely fall post GST, and the property prices will be cheaper because of the introduction of GST. Let us take another situation. Let's say this profit element that we consider is taken from 5% to 10%. Let's say profit is 10%. Now you see into the pricing. The pricing totally changes.